I was born into a devout Buddhist family, deeply immersed in temple life from a young age. Spirituality fascinated me. I was drawn to the rituals, the silence, and the search for inner peace. Over time, though, I began to sense a lack of balance in what I was practicing. The teachings were noble: humility, detachment from worldly desires, the purification of the soul. But certain aspects, like strict vegetarianism and abstaining from life's normal rhythms, felt disconnected from the reality of being human. I began to feel something was missing. As I explored further, my life journey took a turn toward Christianity. Some of my family members were already Christian, and I found the atmosphere there very open, almost liberating. It felt as though anything was allowed, as long as you loved Jesus. I committed myself to it just as deeply as I had to Buddhism. I wanted to be sincere in whatever I believed. But when I started sharing my faith with my Muslim friends, I was surprised by their knowledge of Jesus, how they believed in him too, just not in the same way. Their questions stirred something inside me. I started digging deeper. I brought those questions to the church, but the answers I received didn't satisfy me. I was told to wait for the Holy Spirit, to simply believe. But I needed clarity, not just comfort. It was during this spiritual turmoil that I began sincerely asking for guidance, not from a specific deity, but from the true Creator, whoever that might be. I left the names behind and spoke directly from the heart. Driven by that longing for truth, I immersed myself in different spiritual environments. I had lived in temples and served in churches, so it only felt right to also stay in a mosque. I lived among Muslims for 4 years. During that time, I saw something I hadn't seen before: a balance between the worldly and the spiritual, rules that made sense, values that were both rational and deeply rooted. Then, in 1968, I read about the life of Umar ibn Khattab, and that changed everything. His transformation, strength, and justice opened my heart to Islam. That's when I embraced it fully and took the name Muhammad Husseini. Looking back, I now understand what drew me so strongly to spirituality in the first place. It wasn't just rituals or teachings, it was the search for truth. And while the path wasn't straight, every step, every question, every doubt led me closer to what I was meant to find. In my quiet moments, I would whisper to the heavens, "Oh God, you know I'm looking for you." And as if in response, a powerful urge grew inside me, to read the Quran, to understand what Muslims believed. But strangely, no one ever offered me a copy. Still, the longing to find the truth burned brightly in me. Then I came across the story of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, the second caliph of Islam, once an enemy of the Prophet, a man who had set out to kill him. Yet, through the Quran, his heart changed. He didn't just accept Islam, he became one of its greatest champions, a companion of the Prophet, and a leader under whose rule both the Roman and Persian empires were brought into the fold of Islam. That transformation shook me, it opened my heart. I thought, any religion capable of changing a man like that must have something truly powerful. As I learned more, Islam revealed itself as strikingly practical and balanced. There were rules, yes, clear guidelines on what to do and what to avoid, but nothing overwhelming. It made sense. You were encouraged to work, build a family, live a life with purpose and dignity, all while staying connected to the divine. It wasn't just about rituals. Islam had a system for everything: how to eat, drink, dress, talk, conduct business, even how to purify your soul. Every detail was there, beautifully aligned and complete. Unlike the vague claims I had encountered in other religions, Islam came with clarity and evidence. It wasn't based on hearsay. The Prophet was sent not just to preach, but to live the message, to demonstrate it in every act of daily life. As I immersed myself further, I eventually traveled to Medina, where my understanding deepened. I studied the Quran more seriously, and something struck me like never before: this book had never changed. Not a single verse had been added, removed, or altered. The Quran I read was the same one recited by Muslims around the world, in one unified language, whether in Asia, Africa, or the Middle East. It was a miracle, living, preserved, memorized by millions. I felt immense pride to be drawn to a faith anchored by such purity. Eventually, I was ready. I walked into a mosque and asked the imam to help me embrace Islam. To my surprise, it wasn't as simple as I'd imagined, not because of the process, but because of the reactions. Some Muslim friends seemed puzzled when I told them. When did this happen? They asked, perhaps wondering why I would choose this path. It saddened me a little, but I didn't blame anyone. Many people, I realized, follow religion without seeking to understand it. They inherit beliefs rather than explore them. Very few read their holy books. But in Islam, it was different. Muslims read and even memorize the Quran. This sense of living connection to the sacred text made my faith stronger every day. After I made my Shahada, I was faced with a practical question: where would I stay now? I had always been independent, never one to rely on others. I asked if I could remain in the mosque. I'd lived in temples as a Buddhist, served churches as a Christian. It felt natural to now live in a mosque. It was peaceful, and only those serious about their faith came there. I believed that true practitioners, the ones who genuinely lived their beliefs, always returned to places of worship. For 4 years, I made the mosque my home, moving from one to another, staying a week here, a few months there, guided by the environment and the warmth I felt from each community. Eventually, my journey brought me full circle, back home. I hadn't told my family yet. I was worried, especially about my mother. I thought they might reject me, maybe even harm me out of confusion or hurt. So I stayed away at first. But a kind teacher encouraged me to return. When I did, my mother was heartbroken. She locked herself in her room, unsure of what to feel. But I reassured her. I was still her son, still Chinese, just walking a different spiritual path. My grandmother and siblings, on the other hand, welcomed me with openness and curiosity. Their acceptance gave me strength. Over time, I rebuilt trust with my family. I visited more often, brought them gifts, shared moments of care and laughter. I never told them I lived in a mosque, I simply said I was doing well and staying in a good place. Slowly, they saw the positive changes in me. Their worry faded, and pride began to take its place. My mother grew more at peace with who I had become. And for me, that acceptance was a blessing, a sign that with truth, sincerity, and patience, even the hardest hearts can soften, and distance can turn into closeness once again. Sheikh Hussein never pressured those around him to change after he embraced Islam. Instead, he let the transformation within him speak for itself. His calm demeanor, kindness, and unwavering faith created ripples in the lives of his loved ones. His family observed the peace that Islam brought to him, and over time, that light reached them too. His elder brother embraced Islam before he passed away, and Sheikh Hussein had the honor of performing his funeral prayer at the Islamic Center. His mother also eventually accepted Islam. These were moments of profound emotion, proof that guidance, though solely from Allah, can reach hearts through sincere love and patience. The peace they seek. All over the world, people are searching for peace, in the West, in Turkey, in Asia. Some find temporary calm in meditation, often through Buddhism. But Sheikh Hussein recognized a key difference: while meditation encourages stillness, Islam offers movement with purpose. In Islam, even motion is worship, kulli haraka baraka, every movement brings blessings. Prayer in Islam, he shared, is not just a spiritual retreat but a complete ritual. The very words recited in it were divinely revealed, not man-made poetry, but verses from Allah, taught to Prophet Muhammad, and then to the world. There is a rhythm to Islamic prayer that weaves body and soul together through bowing, prostration, and reflection. He saw how other faiths once contained similar acts of devotion. There were once bowings and prostrations in early Judaism and Christianity too. But over time, teachings were lost, scriptures changed, and original messages diluted. In contrast, the Quran remained untouched, a living miracle that stood guard over the truth, unchanged and eternal. More than just silence. Though meditation holds some value, teaching people to calm their minds and push away negativity, Sheikh Hussein saw it as incomplete when isolated from divine connection. True healing of the soul, he believed, needed more than just silence, it needed reflection grounded in divine wisdom. He likened meditation to tazkiyatun nafs, purification of the soul. While it could be a means to identify inner negativity, what mattered most was how one replaced that darkness with light. Islam calls for positive thinking, seeing every test as a hidden blessing. What others called karma, Islam beautifully explains as qada and qadar, divine decree and destiny. Behind every challenge is wisdom, every hardship a lesson. In Islam, the journey of self-purification begins even before prayer, with physical cleansing. The ritual of wudu, washing hands, face, mouth, and limbs, is more than hygiene. It's a spiritual reset, cleansing not just dust from the body, but distractions from the soul. The parts most exposed to the world are purified before one stands in front of Allah. It's a reminder that Islam's beauty lies not only in belief but in detail, discipline, and divine design. Anchored through storms. Through decades of experience, Sheikh Hussein had seen how Salah anchored the hearts of believers. No matter how broken or lost a person may feel, the connection to Allah through prayer could pull them back to peace. Even in moments of deep sadness, it was the consistent act of praying, morning, night, rain, or storm, that kept the soul steady. He would always advise his students and listeners to never abandon prayer. It wasn't simply a ritual, it was a lifeline. In prayer, a believer didn't just speak to God, they were heard, seen, and remembered. Faz karuni az kirkum, remember me, and I will remember you. That promise gave strength to keep going. The living example. There was one person who exemplified that connection more than anyone, Prophet Muhammad. For Sheikh Hussein, no words could fully express his admiration. The Prophet was the embodiment of mercy, every action, every teaching, a step toward divine closeness. He spent his life guiding others to Allah, patiently, compassionately. He didn't just deliver a message, he lived it. To love Allah, one must follow the Prophet. It was not just a recommendation but a condition set by God himself. Sheikh Hussein often reminded others, don't separate yourself from the Sunnah. Don't pick and choose. Submit to what has been revealed. In it lies success, clarity, and peace. The Chinese heart. As a Chinese Muslim, Sheikh Hussein often carried a heavy feeling in his heart. The vast population of China, over 1 billion people, remained largely disconnected from belief in any deity. Many were raised without religion, without understanding, without spiritual grounding. Yet, Sheikh Hussein never lost hope. He worked harder. He engaged openly with fellow Chinese, speaking to them not as a preacher, but as a brother. He noticed that when people said, I don't believe in any God, they were already halfway to Islam. The first part of the Shahada, La ilaha, denies all false gods. All that remained was to say Ilallah, except Allah. That alone, he believed, made the conversation easier. His mission was not to pressure, but to educate, to inspire curiosity. He would offer people the Quran, not just in Arabic, but with meaning. He'd encourage them to read, to reflect. And many did. Some would return years later with tears in their eyes, telling him they'd read it from cover to cover, and that it had changed them. They weren't always ready to convert, but they were no longer closed. And that openness was the first step. He remained deeply hopeful. Hidayah, after all, is from Allah. But effort was the duty of every believer. And the most powerful dua was always personal example. Good character, good manners, and genuine care spoke louder than any speech. A final message to the world. In the fewest words, Sheikh Hussein wanted the world to know, Islam is perfect, Muslims are human. Don't judge a divine message by the flaws of its followers. He stood proudly as a Muslim, not because of his identity, but because of the truth he had discovered. Islam was not bound by geography, race, or history. It belonged to all of humanity. To him, Islam could even be remembered through the very letters of its name, Islam, I shall love all mankind. That love was at the heart of his mission. He welcomed questions. He encouraged learning. And most of all, he stood as a reminder that Islam is not about claiming superiority, but about seeking truth with sincerity and humility. Wherever life took him, Sheikh Hussein carried that message, with warmth, wisdom, and unwavering faith.